higher than she'll ever know. I love her to skin and bones, my throne, sticks and stones, just to let you validate your message to
Welcome back. We are back to away days. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, and we are here for another match preview, as always, as we look towards another massive game. It's got to be game of the weekend, surely. Manchester United against Newcastle United. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and chat to you all. And of course, it wouldn't be the same without the main man, Chris Hall. How are you?
Good, mate. Yeah, I was just telling you pre-show, a little bit hectic today, but I'm not going to bore all the viewers with that. But I'm here. I'm looking forward to the show tonight, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to Keane as well. So yeah, all good.
Oh God, made it just by the nick of time.
Yeah,
literally. But no, great job, you on. And I just said, I made the point. I said, sure, it's got to be game of the weekend. How is this game not on TV?
Villa Chelsea.
What? I have no idea. I don't know what Sky are doing, but they've made a massive howler by not having this game on TV. It is a massive game, that is for sure. And look, let's get into it. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's get right into it right now. And of course, we have the pleasure of Talk of the Devils, Keane, that's going to come and join us very, very shortly. In fact, yes, let's get him in now. Welcome in, Keane. How you doing?
How's it going, lads? How's things?
Not too bad, not too bad. I think your evening has been as hectic as Chris's, hasn't it? You were just by the nick of time as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it's literally just finished up their podcast on Talk of the Devils there, so we're literally just talking this weekend's game as well. So yeah, it's hectic even. But look, as you said there in the background, like it is the biggest game of the weekend. Like I think alongside Man City, Liverpool, like I think it's a travesty that this game, isn't actually televised when you actually look at like two big clubs, two traditionally big clubs as well. Like, I think you have to look at it and say, like, I think it's shocking that Villa Chelsea is televised ahead of this one,
You look at that. You look at the early kickoff, Man United, Newcastle, and then you've got Liverpool, Man City. Like that's your Super Sunday. That is everyone in the country watching those two massive games. It's genuinely surprised me. I didn't realize I'm at the game, so I've got a ticket. So I hadn't thought about whether it was on TV. I just assumed it would be because of the level of the game, but I'm not too sure why they've made that decision. A little bit mad for me, but look, great to have you, Keane. Thank you for joining us. We have advertised Saeed TV. Unfortunately, he's had a sort of a last minute hitch where he can't actually make it. But what he's done, and I'm really interested in listening to this. He's done a video for us. Answering a few questions, so we'll get to his questions in a little bit, because I think one or two, or maybe more than one or two in the chat, are going to be interested to hear what he's got to say on some of the questions that we posed to him. So we'll get to that in a second. But look, I want to talk to you, Keane. We'll get into it straight away. I'm going to put up the Premier League table from last season, from where you guys finished sixth in the table after 38 games, 0 goal difference, 58 points. At this point now, this season, if I flick it around, in 5th place already, 15 points on the board. You know, just after such a, I'll put it as nice as a kind of shocking start to the season. You know, how do you assess where you are after 8 games?
Look, I think we're in a decent position after 8 games. And you consider, like, look, the first 2 games against Brentford and Brighton, they were, like you said, shocking. They were an absolute disaster. And to see how Ten Hag's really turned it around, he's realised he can't play the way he really wants to play straight away. He doesn't have the players to play the way he really wants to straight away. He's taken a bit more of a pragmatic approach. I think, like, look, fair play to him for that. I think if I look at the games, like, such as Liverpool, Arsenal, and most recently Everton, like, the way our defence has been more resolute, and we're starting to see relationships been built across the pitch. It's something we didn't see last season. There was a lack of cohesion. There was a lack of, I suppose, effort in games. Most teams were outrunning us in games, and to see us, do the basics well, where we weren't doing that last season, I've been impressed with that. But overall, it's been a decent start to the season. I wouldn't say it's been a great start, because obviously, like, the first 2 games really outweigh kind of, I suppose, nearly the good almost. But, like, look, it's been an okay start. The derby, like, look, City are scoring an average 4 goals a game. It was always going to be a tough game, but it's one of them where, look, you move on from that. You try to react and get the result, which we did at Goodison last weekend. But all in all, it's been an okay start. You know, hopefully, like, look, this weekend I think is a tough game. It's a tough game this weekend. I think Newcastle are in brilliant form. They've had a decent start to the season. Like, Eddie Howe has done a great job. So, like, so far so good for them. So, look, I think Sunday is going to be a real benchmark to show not only where Man United are, but also where Newcastle are as well, because they've been on good form as well.
No, you're absolutely right. And look, you managed to turn it around when I think most in the country thought you wouldn't, especially after that Brentford loss. Everyone was talking about it being a relegation battle and it being that type of difficult season for Man United, but it hasn't proved to be the case. But you made a really good point, and I'll come to you, Chris, on this, is that, you know, Keane's talked about Newcastle being in really good form at the moment, but it hasn't been all roses for us this season. You know, you look at the 2 home games, you look at Bournemouth, and you look at Palace not getting 3 points in either of them. And actually, before the Fulham game, there was quite a question marks out there about how and what Newcastle season looked like. Would you still say your judgment is still out, or would you now consider this a positive start for Newcastle season?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this, didn't we, Pete, on the show many a time, saying, like, you know, I think people were kind of getting the knickers in a twist a little bit. You know, like, obviously, when you look at the league table and when you look at the points accumulated, you kind of go, not great. But when you look at it, you know, when you actually look at, you know, the results and stuff, we've lost 1 game all season, which was at Anfield, as we know. And we lost in the last minute of the game, or the last 3 minutes of the game. I won't go into that. And, you know, we've gone away to Wolves, we've gone away to Brighton, we've played Man City, we've played Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? These aren't easy games. And in the past, you know, don't get me wrong, I would expect us to pick up at least a point or 3 points at home to Wolves and at home to Brighton. But going away to Brighton and going away to Wolves they're not easy fixtures. To be fair, these days in the Premier League, there's not really many easy fixtures other than maybe Forest. Sorry for any Forest fans watching.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe Liverpool as well nowadays, as well as nearly turned out to be an easy game.
Keane, I tell you, mate, do you know what? And Keane, you're probably aware of this, I'm sure, but what gets me the most is obviously not just the fact that we lost that game in the last 3 minutes. I was at Anfield in the away end. Not just the fact that we lost it, when there was, 5 minutes at a time, and then it went to 8 minutes. That's bad enough.
Okay.
But we had no St. Maximin, no Wilson, no Bruno, no Shah, and no Botman.
Yeah.
And I think we had a full strength. If we were playing Liverpool this weekend, I'm telling you, they'd be worried. They would be worried. So like you, Keane, I watched the Liverpool Man U game, and like I was gobsmacked by it, because you fully deserved that win. Do you know what I mean? It was weird seeing, because in the last 5 or 6 years we've just been used to Liverpool and City fighting it out at the top, battling. And this season, I don't know what it is. There's something that's just not quite right. And Salah scored a hat-trick the other day, fastest hat-trick in Champions League history. But it's like cool the jets a little bit. You're playing Rangers. So it'll be interesting to see how Salah reacts this weekend against City, because for me, I think City are going to steamroll them, if I'm honest. But yeah, to answer your question, Pete, I think the it's been a relatively strong start. Now that we've got those back-to-back wins, all of a sudden our league position looks decent. And I just wanted to touch on the point that you made at the start, Pete, when you were talking to Keane about the league position. It just goes to show, doesn't it? Like, from an outsider's point of view, you go, if you didn't look at the league table and you didn't see the the accumulation of points, you'd go, United, they've not had the greatest of starts, have they? It's not been the best. They dropped a few points where they could have had the 3 points. There was a couple of shock results in there, and then you look at the league table in the fifth, and you're like, how did that happen? So it just goes to show, Man United still very much a huge club. And let's be honest, I'm certainly going into this game and I'm thinking we've got an excellent opportunity to pick up some points, and I'm not as frightened as I would be previously going to Old Trafford. But make no mistake about it, their squad is filled with talent. So I just hope we don't, kind of take anything for granted, and we turn up there knowing we're going to have to work damn hard to get something from the game.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on, and you're not the only one to say that, Chris. Brett C put in the chat, first time in a long time I'm not dreading a trip to Old Trafford. Me, Sky decided to show Villa Chelsea. We just talked about that, but the initial point from Brett is a really good one, and you've touched on it as well. You're both absolutely right. We're going into this game full of confidence. Eddie Howe said the same today. He would. The ideal preparation to go to Old Trafford is a team in good form and in good confidence, and we're both at the moment, so we're in a really good place. And you could say equally, Man United are in a good place. Obviously, your last result, Europe aside, although that was a I don't know if you want to get into that one, but that was a difficult watch. I've got to be honest. But what I was going to say is that obviously you won at Goodison Park. You got that result. How big a result was that for you? Considering last year you lost 1-0 there, and that was also a tough watch.
Yeah, look, I think last Sunday was a brilliant result, considering if you look at the performance last season, they outran us by about 10 or 11k, and we never looked like we got out of first gear in that game last season. And they absolutely battered us all over the pitch, and we made Anthony Gordon look like a world-class player. In that game last season. So, I thought it was a great performance, especially the fact what really resonated with me is when we went 1 down, like we didn't panic. Like usually we panic when we go 1 down, and we kept the ball well, we quietened the crowd down, and though we scored in vital moments, and though we kept our composure away from home, because if you look at Man United's away record, the season before we had the best away record in the country. Last season we had one of the worst away records in the league. And to see kind of how we reacted, and we took control of the game. I thought Eriksen ran the show in midfield last week. He was absolutely brilliant. And Ronaldo getting goal number 700, that was a great landmark to see. Personally, I'm going over to Old Trafford in a few weeks. I was hoping he may hold out for when I got over to get goal number 700, but wasn't to be. But it was great just to see us react, get a result, especially after the derby as well, like such a heavy defeat. It's great to get a reaction, because again, like I touched on earlier, there was points last season where we get a defeat and we go into free fall, whereas this season, despite defeats, we've reacted. And we've got back, we've got our tails up and got results straight after. So it was good. It was a good result, good performance over 90 minutes. And again, it was just great to see overall effort and running and actually doing the basics. Because again, we haven't done that last season under Solskjaer, and especially under Ralph Rangnick. It was an absolute travesty. It was one of our worst seasons ever, really. So it's great to see us, really push forward, get a result, and some players who were kind of, I suppose, in a bit of average form play really well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, we'll talk about some of those individual players a little bit later on. But look, it's great to have so many in the chat. All those regulars in there. Nobby Clark's in there. You got Geordie Toon for life. We've our very own Dash Shocks in there, always in there, causing mischief as always. Not by design. Good to see you. We've got our own double O Stato. Keith in the house. Jules, welcome, Jules. We've got Russ 1892. Great to have you in. Obviously, a regular in the chat, of course. Our sponsor, one of our sponsors, Simon. Welcome, Simon Cole, Paul, Doug the Toon, Yano, Lisa, absolute legends, mods as well. Great to have you all joining, and many more too. Get your questions in for Keane. There's already a number of questions we've already marked out for Keane, and we'll get to them as the show goes on. So, in the build up to this game, there's been a lot of talk about a certain name that links to both clubs, and its name is Bruno. Now, I was asked earlier on in the week, as I am every so often, is to do a little bit of an article, and the question was like, which Bruno do you prefer? Which one would you have in your starting lineup? And you know, there was a Man United perspective. Alex from Stretford Paddock had his opinion and was quite clear on his perspective on Bruno Guimaraes, and obviously Bruno Fernandes, and he's leaned obviously towards Bruno Fernandes. But of course, I gave my Newcastle perspective, and it seemed to go down well with Newcastle United fans. I was respectful to both Bruno Fernandes and Bruno Guimaraes, because I know what Bruno Fernandes has been to you guys, as particularly over the COVID period when he first signed. But for me, I lean towards Bruno Guimaraes, and I give my reasons why. You might not be able to see it on the screen, but the link is available. But the stats don't lie, and the polls are there, and they're in. And 63% chose Bruno Guimaraes as their better Bruno. Now, before I get your opinion on this, Keane, I want to know your opinion on who you prefer out of the two Brunos, and I want to get your opinion on Bruno Guimaraes just in isolation as well. We had, who was going to join us tonight, and he did send his apologies. We got Saeed from Saeed TV that shared his opinions on who he preferred out of Bruno Guimaraes and Bruno Fernandes, and he's answered a few other questions as well about the build up to this Sunday. So I'll play the video now as he shares his thoughts.
Hi guys, hope you're well. Bruno Fernandes versus Bruno Guimaraes. You know what? I'm actually going to say Bruno Guimaraes, and I'll be honest with you, his impact for, I would say, the last year has been at Newcastle has been absolutely excellent. He's been a very, very vital part, very, very key component for Newcastle. Been in there, been dictating, dropping deep. He's almost their kind of linchpin in that side, and I feel like for me, has gone a bit under the radar in terms of Premier League. I think we kind of underappreciating his value and what he's brought to the Premier League. Terrific player. Whether you can keep hold of him is another thing. I think Real Madrid and maybe other clubs might be in for him, but I think Bruno Guimaraes for me over Bruno Fernandes, and that's for me a player who fall in love with Bruno Fernandes, but I think Bruno Guimaraes has a bigger impact for me at Newcastle than Bruno Fernandes does at Man United. Thoughts on the game on Sunday? It's going to be a tough one. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a bit nervous about this game. I'm very, very anxious in terms of what Newcastle can give you. I think they're the third least, in terms of conceding goals this season. Very, very staunch defense. Dan Burns in there, Sven Botman. Got some decent defenders. Got experience in there with Trippier. Obviously, you've got the attack. You know what I mean? Sam Maximum, very, very dangerous. So you guys have got very, very good players, man. I feel like for me, Eddie Howe, very, very good manager. I've always rated him since probably Bournemouth days. I think he's been an excellent manager, and he's doing very well for you guys. You know what I mean? It was easy to kind of go in that route when you had the money to go and get the big names. But for me, Eddie Howe deserves massive credit for what he's done at Newcastle. And yeah, you guys are 1 point behind us. This is a massive game for the top 4 battle, for Newcastle. Who would have known, eh? But listen, you guys are deserved where you guys are. I think nobody can take that away from you. I think when you look at the loss you had at Liverpool, was it deserved? I don't think so. I think VAR or whatnot might have something to say about that one. I think it's a bit dodgy, that decision to give Liverpool the extra minutes. But I think for me, Yeah, I think it'll be a tough game, but I think we'll get the win just about. I think, like, for me, you know what I mean. We've got to make our home advantage count. Who am I most worried about? For me, Saint-Maximin, dangerous player, very, very technical, pace, power. He's got everything, man. Ability, you know what I mean, trickery. He's unbelievable. I remember when I went to Newcastle 2019, he absolutely done us over. I think 1-0 at your ground, ridiculous player. And I think for me, you know what I mean, we've got to keep him quiet, but it's easier said than done, eh? Who do we need to look out for Man United? I think for me, I think Rashford's turning up a little bit of a form now. I think he's starting to get the goals in now, starting to bring the confidence that he had probably 2 years ago. I think also look out for Anthony on this right-hand side. He's got 3 goals in about 4 games for Man United. He's starting to do well. He's starting to pick up the pace now in the Premier League. I think you've got to look out for him. I think also Lisandro Martinez. I know he's not a player that, you know what I mean, he's not an attacking forward, but just defensively, he's been a very, very key component for us. And what he does do as well, he plays the ball in between the lines, gets into that midfield quickly. Very, very decent ball play, said about aggressive, tenacious. So Callum Wilson might have a tough time. So yeah, watch out for them 3 in particular. And then we are looking for the predictions. I'm going to go for 3-1. And I know this sounds, you know, maybe, you know, it doesn't give Newcastle justice, because I feel like for me, they've been playing well this season. But I think for me, we'll make our home form count. I think Newcastle, you know what I mean, will they play the game rather than the occasion? I don't know. It's a big game, man. Up in the north, you know, the history between Newcastle and United, you know what I mean? We'll see how far Newcastle have come. But I still think our home form, I think we've got that over that bit period between Brentford and you know, Brighton, and obviously the loss away to Man City. But I think at home, you know, we did well against Liverpool, Arsenal. You know, the fans are on it, so I think we'll get the job done. But thanks for having me on, guys, and big up to the podcast. Love what you guys do.
So, Saeed with his views and opinions there, and look, so close to being a perfect video until he went to those predictions and then just ruined it all at the end. But look, we'll go back to the Bruno chat. Interestingly, Saeed has sided with Bruno Guimaraes. He prefers him. You know, I'm going to ask you the question, Keane. Do you agree with that? What's your opinions on the 2 Brunos?
I think they're both quality players. I think obviously Guimaraes is more defensively minded than what Bruno Fernandes is. Like, Fernandes is more of a number 10 kind of second striker. So, like, they are 2 very good players. They both have their own individual impacts for their football clubs. I think if you'd ask me who would I rather have on my side right now, probably Fernandes, just on the basis of his creativity and his chance creation. Is like, it, regardless of him not scoring goals, his big chance creation every game, like if you look at the stats, is unbelievable. Like, he's a very good player. I just look at Casemiro at 6 at the minute. He probably edges Guimaraes for me just at the moment, in the 6th role, and we have Eriksen playing 8 at the minute. So, like, I would edge it, but at the same time, like, Guimaraes is a brilliant player. Like, he's been, like, that was a very good sign, and considering, right, you weren't in European football, and you managed to bring a player in him, Joe, in last January, like, very shrewd by the football club. So, like, Joe, he's been a very good player. He's a threat, and look, he's actually allowed the likes of Joe Linton, you know, to actually, you know, bomb forward and get about, because he sits and, you know, he's a really good linchpin in midfield. So, like, he gives some of your more of attacking players freedom to get forward and, you know, get on the ball and be creative. So, like, he is a very good player. But I do have to go with my man Fernandes, just on the basis of his creativity. It's off the charts, and like, he's not getting as much goals and assists this season, but if you actually look at the chances he does create, he creates a lot of them, and he's very productive in that way. So that's where I'd edge it on, just on the basis of that, because of the other defensive minded players we kind of have behind him in Casemiro. So that's why I'd go on that one on the 2 Brunos. But Bruno Guimaraes collectively is a player. He's been brilliant and one of the best 6s in the league since he's come into the team.
No, I think it's a fair assessment. I don't think anybody's saying, you know, Bruno Fernandes is a rubbish player. He's not, and that's what we alluded to really in our thoughts before. And you're right in what you said. His creative abilities is there for all to see. But Chris, the stats don't lie. as Carragher and Roy Keane had on Monday. They had those stats up available, and basically they were saying he's one of the best performing midfielders in the league. Surely your team, Bruno Guimaraes.
I've got to be, haven't I? I've got to be. I mean, Keane, you probably were expecting that, to be fair. Like,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, like I'm a big fan of Bruno Fernandes, and when Bruno Fernandes first joined Man United, he like broke on the scene, didn't he? And people were actually talking about him in the first 6 months. Well, I don't know whether you were keen, but I was as a neutral, I'm sure others were as well. People were like mentioning him in the same breath as the likes of De Bruyne, which is like, a high accolade. Now I know last season he didn't quite have the season that he had when he first broke in, but that's not to say that he's not a good player. And class is permanence, isn't it? I think he may have struggled a little bit at Man United recently because of obviously the things going on in the dressing room, behind the scenes, stuff like that. But Bruno Fernandes, he's like then. Bruno Fernandes is a top draw player, and you can never count him out. His passing range is just like ridiculous. He's just a really, really good player. And
he's a very good leader in the dressing room as well. Like he's actually taken the captain's armband from Harry Maguire since the Brentford game. There's been a mentality shift within the team, and he's always still giving orders on the pitch. Now, look, to be fair, he can be a bit of a bitch. He can bitch and moan. Let's get that right. He can bitch and moan on the pitch, and I'll be the first one to admit that drives me mad sometimes. But overall, as a leader, he's a very good leader within the team, and he likes taking that mantle. And since he's actually got that captain's armband, we've seen more leadership on the pitch. Whereas when it was Harry Maguire, he shied away from taking that mantle, and he didn't take it in his stride being captain. So that's where as well, I think one thing about Fernandes, well, he's a leader, and it's something I do like about him.
Yeah, and do you know what, Keane? Just to I'll ask you this question. I was going to ask you it anyway, but you've led me nicely into it. Like, I seem to notice, and maybe it was just me, but I seem to notice that when Ronaldo came back to Man United, there was almost like a little bit of a I could see like a, not friction, maybe that's too harsh a word, but Fernandes had burst on the scene at Man United. He was the main guy. Everyone was talking about Bruno at Man United, and then Ronaldo came back, and Portuguese teammate, and all of a sudden Ronaldo was like, main man's back now, and I felt like it kind of pushed Bruno Fernandes a little bit out. And now that you've said, I didn't realise this, now that you've just said that Bruno Fernandes is captain, is that a really clever move by Erik ten Hag, in the sense that he's gone, you're my man. Ronaldo's Ronaldo. Like, Ronaldo's just ridiculous. But giving Bruno the captaincy is basically him saying, yeah, you're a big part of my plans as well, and I want you to be the leader of the team. Do you think that's partly the reason, in terms of him trying to say to Bruno, you're a big part of my plans. I know Ronaldo's here, but equally, I see you as my captain, because it really, in fairness, it would have been very easy for him to just go to Ronaldo. There you go, captain's armband, but he didn't.
Yeah, look, I think there was a very good move by Ten Hag to make him captain, because, first of all, he has experience being a captain. He was captain of Sporting Lisbon before he came to United, so he has that experience, of being a captain. And also, as well, you're right. I think it was a great kind of vote of confidence from Ten Hag to Bruno, when you consider. When you consider his struggles at the club. I know he's recently had to sign the new deal, and there was talk amongst a certain section of the fan base, that he won't be an option under Erik ten Hag that Donny van de Beek would be. Now, me personally, I think Donny van de Beek isn't cut out to be a Premier League player, never mind a Man United one, but that's another story for another day. But if I look at Fernandes' overall character, he thrives off being a leader. He thrives off being the main man, and for Ten Hag to give him that vote of confidence, I think was massive. And you're right, it could have been easy for Ten Hag to say, right, I'm just going to give the captaincy to Ronaldo. He's he's one of the greatest players of all time, brilliant goal scorer. He's won everything in the game, the bar the World Cup, obviously, but he's won every single trophy possible nearly. It would have been easy for him, but when the fact he's after giving him that captaincy now, and what will be probably temporarily until Harry Maguire gets into the team at some stage in the season, I think it's a massive vote of confidence. And if you look at the way other players have reacted to Bruno, other players around the squad are calling him captain and on their social media posts and stuff like that. So I think you have to look at that and say, the players obviously see him as a leader in the dressing room, and he's well liked within the dressing room. So that's a good plus point for him. But I'm hoping he can just, people talk about his goals and assists have dried up, and like if you actually look at his overall game, has actually got slightly better. His pass completion rates are going up. He's not losing possession as much as he used to last season. Now, obviously, he still does lose it, but a lot of Man United fans moan about him trying that adventurous pass. Before we signed Fernandes, we had Jesse Lingard and Andreas Pereira at number 10, and the whole fan base were moaned about us not creating chances and taking risks. Now we have the ultimate risk taker, one of the best risk-taking midfielders in world football, and they're moaning about that. Like our fan base moans consistently. They moan about anything. And look, sometimes I'm one of them. But when you look at Fernandes, you need a player like him, the team, to unlock defenses, And like last night, he created a lot of chances. I know we only scored one goal in the end of the day. We couldn't finish our dinner. But if you actually look at him at the chances he creates a lot of them. So, like, he's a brilliant player. I think the introduction of Casemiro and Eriksen will, I suppose, lessen his burden in midfield to drop deep. Like you see, as the more Casemiro plays in United's midfield, you're going to see Bruno Fernandes kind of more advanced, in behind either Martial or Ronaldo. So, I suppose to answer your question, I think it's a very good move by Ten Hag to make him captain at this moment in time, because of like what impact he's had the club so far, but also as well just from his point of view to see him thrive off that leadership role, and hopefully it continues.
Just a quick question, Keith, Keane, and Pete. Sorry if I've ruined the plans or the path.
No, go for it.
I'd be interested to know, how long do you reckon Harry Maguire's got left at the club?
Do you know what? I think I want him to succeed, because he's look, he is a decent footballer. He's a decent centre half. But I look at Lisandro Martinez and I look at Rafael Varane. I don't think he can reach their level, of their defensive stability and their relationship. And I look at the way Erik Ten Hag wants to eventually play with a high line and players who are comfortable, coming out from the back, but also as well, the other point of like being quick in transition. I don't think Maguire will be able to thrive in that system. In terms of how long he'll be left, I think if he doesn't play much football between now and the end of the summer, I think we may see him. Between now and the end of the season, I think he may move next summer. Now, again, we won't get anywhere near what we paid for him, but I think that's definitely not going to happen. I don't see Harry Maguire being here next summer, because I don't think he's going to play enough football, and he's an England international. And Gareth Southgate's probably going to be gone after the World Cup as well. Where look, Harry Maguire is one of his favourites, and if they get a manager in who doesn't play their favourites and plays players based off form and the amount of games they play, I think Harry Maguire in England career could be in jeopardy. For that point of view, so I think Harry Maguire may move on next summer.
Interesting. What do you reckon? To be fair, we'll come to a question section, because there's a few questions just flagged up which I definitely want to ask you. I've starred them, Chris, already, so you'll probably be able to see them. But this hasn't been starred. But I just want to say, on the back of Chris's question about Maguire, which was a brilliant question, if he does leave in the summer, who do you think he goes to, and for how much? What's a rough price you think he might go for?
Well, I would have said he'd go back to Leicester, but Leicester might get relegated. You never know. In terms of how much, I think we're making a 50 million loss on him. I really do. I think Harry Maguire goes for about 30 million, maybe 40 at a max if the English tax. Yeah, I think 30 million he probably goes for, because there's still a defender in there. He's still a good Premier League level defender. Not Man United level defender where we have like Varane and Martinez, but he's still a good player. Yeah, I don't know where he could go to. Maybe Newcastle have a lot of money. He may be a good bench defender for Botman. You never know. I'm way messing there, but look.
This is the trouble, isn't it? Keane, this is the trouble. He's like you say, I don't think he's a bad defender. I just think that unfortunately nowadays, and again, I'm kind of relating him to like the way that like the modern day striker, your likes of your Andy Carrolls, the likes of your Chris Woods. Unfortunately, the game's evolved, and I feel like it's centre back. Now being maybe not even pacey, just not slow. And unfortunately, Harry Maguire, like sometimes when you see him turn, he turns incredibly slow, doesn't he? And the trouble is, if you play a really high line, I remember Paul Mason, and Paul Mason does talk a lot of rubbish, by the way. But in fairness to Paul, I'll have this. He was talking about a fella called Richard Johnson, who used to play centre back for Wolves, I believe.
Yeah. Your man used to play for Birmingham as well, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and he was playing really well, blah blah blah, and he got a move, and he said his career was, well, in fact, he was referring to Harry Maguire getting the move, but he was saying that Leicester played a different way, which is absolutely right, and it fitted because if you remember when Leicester won the Premier League, they had Wes Morgan as centre back. But the way that they played suited Wes Morgan. But if you put Wes Morgan in a Liverpool side, a Man United side, an Arsenal side, a Tottenham side, he'd just get found out because they play 20, 30 yards further up the pitch. And then when you've got that fast, pacey striker who's on the turn, he's done. He's in trouble. He's got to get his positioning just right. And I feel that's what's happened with Harry Maguire. And yeah, you're right. I actually struggled to see who would take him. I really do.
I think the thing about him is, I think you look at so many English players who've struggled. Maybe a move to the Bundesliga wouldn't be the worst thing for him if you look how the way the style of football is over there. Or do you know what? If you look how, I'll actually make an example here. If you look at how Chris Smalling struggled at United when Solskjaer wanted to play out from the back, and he went to Italy. Like I think Maguire would probably thrive in that league. Like in the back three, or in a team that plays deep. Like especially look at his role at Leicester. He played well there. So like I think if he went abroad, he'd get away. Number one, get away from United fans, which just abuse him, which it's not right. It isn't right. You get away from the pressure of the English media and being in the spotlight the whole time. And then he's in a league that's a much slower pace, and his overall game wouldn't be as affected. And there's not many teams over there play a high press, so I think he maybe would he would thrive in Italy. And again, like you look at Tammy Abraham, you look at Chris Smalling, look at Callum Hudson-Odoi going away from the Premier League. These English players, like they've all they've all thrived. So it actually could be a decent move for him. And to be fair, them teams abroad would probably pay maybe 25, 30 million for him. And look, again, it's a massive loss. And look, that's just the way our club is ran. Like, we get our pants pulled down for every transfer we make. And to be fair, the fact Newcastle have a lot of money, you might see teams trying to pull your pants down at some stages as well. You might see that in the near future, the more successful you become. But yeah, I think maybe a move abroad would probably be the smart thing to do. I see some of the comments recommending Greece. Well, no, he better not go over there because I think the Greek police are still about the few slaps he gave him when he was over there last time.
He wouldn't be able to sign the deal because as soon as he lands, he'd get arrested, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Look, I think you're absolutely right. You both said it to go abroad. I think, and I'm just thinking. You mentioned Italy. It's very clear that Skriniar at Inter Milan is highly sought after. PSG nearly signed him in the summer. I think Skriniar going to PSG next summer and them signing Harry Maguire would be a great bit of business because
Mourinho wants them as well at United, so Roma could be an option as well.
Yeah, Roma definitely could be an option as well. Whether they've got the money to pay that 30-40 million for one player is a different matter. If Skriniar goes for 50-60 million, Inter have got the money to just plough straight in and get someone like Harry Maguire, which is why I thought that. But PSG wouldn't be a bad option. I think Ramos might leave at the end of the season. He could be that option if they don't get Skriniar. Again, a slower pace league, defend quite deep, playing in a team that's going to win every week and be the strongest dominating team. It kind of makes sense for Maguire. But there's 3 clubs in England, if he's desperate to stay in this country, that he'd probably go to. One of them is West Ham. West Ham just goes.
I thought West Ham.
They spunk so much money on just random signings. They do it all the time. It wouldn't surprise me if they went in for him. The other club is Aston Villa. Aston Villa have got a lot of money to spend. If Gerrard's still there, which he might well not be by the end of the season, he'd definitely be a Gerrard type of signing. And the third one that's just gone out of my head.
Back to Leicester if they stay up.
Sorry, it was Leicester, but I'd even probably throw Everton in there. I'd even throw Everton in there as a potential. Him and Cody at the back. Yeremina can't keep himself fit for 2 seconds. He's worse than bloody Callum Wilson. But they're the 4 clubs even that I think would potentially take him back in England. But the other clubs that we've just talked about play Champions League football, so he's probably going to want to favour them, and it wouldn't be a bad option. But yeah, it's a real strange situation with Harry Maguire. I think Yano in the chat put on in the comments that he thinks he'll play on Sunday. I'll be honest with you, I hope he does. I hope he does, because I think Callum Wilson and our attacking minded players, people like Almiron, St. Maximin, would really give him a torrid time if he was playing. So I hope he does play. But
he's still out injured.
Oh, is he still injured? Okay.
Yes.
If that's the case, then lucky for Man United. That's all I'll say. If he's still injured, in my opinion, of course.
Oh, I'm delighted. I'm delighted Isak's not getting on him. Jesus Christ, that would be. Oh.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about a little bit of team news. Isak has been confirmed that he's not going to be available for this Sunday. He has been training all week, and I actually thought he'd be back and on the bench, but it turns out that Howe said he's not ready. Now, we do play on Wednesday against Everton at home, so I think he's probably saving him for that game. So I think he'll be back very, very soon. But Isak's not playing. Other than that, I think other than him and Shelvey, I think we've got a full strength squad to choose from. There is question marks about Tony Martial for you. He could well be back after his injury at Everton. Is that right?
Yeah, so Ten Hag said in his press conference pre-Ammonia and actually post-Ammonia as well that he's recovering. Looks like he could be back for Sunday. Personally, look, if he's not 100%, I wouldn't play him. But look, if you look at the way Ten Hag wants to play, and you look at the minutes that Martial has played for United this season, he's settled in, really well, and his relationship with Rashford is really good. You look how they interchange positions, how they link up. They have a very good partnership, and I'd if I look at Martial's United career, it's been very stop-start, for a lot of the time, and it's unfortunate because he's clearly talented. He's clearly a good player. There's a player in there, but injuries. He reminds me a lot of Louis Saha when he was with us. He was very talented, very good, good finisher, and well liked. But it's one of them where he's just always hindered by injury. And he really does remind me of Saha, because Saha had kind of stop-start with United, and he had that really big run of form, and then we brought Tevez in, and that was it then, so I look at Martial, and I just look at his skill set, and if you look the way Ten Hag wants to play, he brings players into play, he drops in, he drags the centre halves, or he gets the defensive midfielders attention, and he makes players around him play better. And against a team like Newcastle, I think Martial will be that right type of striker to occupy your centre halves in terms of his movement. Whereas Ronaldo, look, where he's a brilliant finisher, he won't press as much as Martial, and he won't get other players involved in the game as much as Martial would. Now, Ronaldo poses a whole different threat. If Newcastle give him a chance to score, look, we all know how good of a finisher he is. But if I look at the way Newcastle play, I'm looking at Martial as my type of striker to play up there. But again, it's a case of can he be fit? I'm personally looking at. I know you talked about your game with Isak keeping him for Everton. I'm looking at Spurs midweek, and I'm thinking against Romero and the way Martial draws fouls, I'm thinking maybe keep him for that.
Yeah, maybe. That's not a bad shout. Chris just put it in the chat. There's some fantastic questions coming from you guys in the chat. Let's go to 2 or 3 or 4, Chris, and then we'll look to the next section.
Good man, yeah. Keane, literally, we've got loads, mate. So hopefully, a few of these will be quick ones. So yeah, I won't throw too many at you. But yeah, at the moment we've got about 18. So I'm trying to pick it as best as I can. I love this one from Yano. Yano says, Keane, do you regret the return of Ronaldo?
Great question.
Yeah, absolutely not. I'll tell you why I don't regret it. that week when we signed him was one of the best weeks of my life as a United fan. Now, obviously, look, I've seen us win trophies and that, but just seeing the player I loved growing up come back, and when it looked like he was going to Man City, it was a couple of days before we signed him. I put up a tweet and I was like, "Come back home to Stretford End, come home for one last dance." When there was no talk of him signing for us at all, then we hijacked City's move for him and we got him. It was that 24 hours was a sort of pandemonium. And look, the amount of winners he scored last season and moments I was at Old Trafford where he lit up the place. It was worth it. It was worth it in the end.
We were, fully enough, Keane, we were at Old Trafford, weren't we, Pete? We were there for Ronaldo's first goal. Yeah.
I was about to say, I wish he didn't come back. It was great to see him. And you know how I feel about Cristiano Ronaldo, but yeah, I kind of wish he'd not come back. So I actually think we'd have got something from the game had he not been there. But yeah, got a couple more, Chris.
Yeah, one from Michael Parsons, which is an interesting one. Are Man United missing Pogba?
Ooh.
No, we're not missing Pogba at the moment because look, I'm not disrespecting his quality as a footballer. He's a brilliant footballer, but again, like he misses a lot of time out during injury. And look, I think case in point, look at Juventus. He hasn't played a competitive game for him yet. And you look at Christian Eriksen coming in on a free, no baggage, no agent talk, no rumors every 6 days that he wants to leave. No, we're not missing Paul Pogba at the minute.
We've got a question from Vuss 1892, and that is the Vuss we all know and love, by the way. Vuss has changed his name. He announced that before. So Vuss, hello mate, hope you're well. Vuss asks you, Keane, do you think Man United will get silverware before Newcastle?
So, this is a hard one. It's a really hard one.
It is, isn't it? It is a hard one.
I thought we'd win the Europa League this year, but then looking at all the teams in the Champions League, we're third place right now. I'm shitting myself, not going to lie.
Barca potentially dropping down.
Yeah, and Atletico Madrid and all. Like I'm like thinking, I hate playing them. They're so good. I'll go. Yeah, I think we might win like a domestic cup, like the FA Cup or League Cup, maybe in the next year or so.
Yeah. Simon Vudas is another good question. It kind of links to what we've just said. Are you worried that you're never going to get back to the glory days, especially with having the second best Bruno?
Like that one.
See how we didn't say the manure.
Look, I think United will never go. Not that we'll never get back to the glory days, but I think as long as the Glazers are there, I don't think you'll see us winning three-peats, or you won't see us, be that juggernaut that we were. Like, we're still a massive club. We'll still maybe win trophies here, there. We may even get back win the league. But I just see, as long as the Glazers are there, and they're more interested in the spreadsheets rather than the football inside the club. And I just think they're only happy with top four at a minimum. If you look at United post-Sir Alex, United's maximum investments come in every season after we finish outside the Champions League places. So I look at it and say, maybe with Glazers there, we won't get back to where we want to be. But again, it's a tough one because you never know. All the Jim Radcliffe talk at the minute, like takeover. There's takeover talk kind of ramping up in the last couple of months. I know I was talking to Martin about takeover on your side last season, well before it happened. And I was saying, like, I think Newcastle will be taken over on my podcast. And literally about 3-4 months later, he got new owners. So it's one of them. I don't think we're going to get back to the Fergie days, basically. Yeah, don't think that's going to happen.
Got a few more for you, Keane, because I know people want to move things on. But Yano asks, since the departure of Sir Alex, who has been your best manager? And we could rephrase that if you like as well, and maybe your answer's different. Who's been your favourite manager?
Well, if you go on statistically, our best manager has probably been Jose, but my favourite manager was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Because former Red, from that period where he came in and after Mourinho, the club was in such a moment of disarray, he made it feel good to be a Man United fan again. Like, he brought everyone back together, of one of our own being manager, and there was some wins that were really memorable in that time. Now, look, it ended on a sour note, but, all in all, he's probably my favourite manager post Sir Alex, even though I love the madness of Louis van Gaal while he was there as well. He was cracked.
Keane, I'm really sorry. I keep going, just that's this one, and then I see another one. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to ask him that as well. So I'm going to be dead quick. Alan Thompson asks, and Pete, I don't know if you were going to ask Keane this, but where do you think you'll finish this season?
Yeah, go for it.
Probably where we are right now, I think, in 5th.
No,
I think just at the minute, I think it'll be a better season than last season. We'll play better football. I think the Europa League may hinder us later on the season. We pick up an injury or two. We never know. Like, look, Spurs are a bit ropey at the minute, like with their form. They're not playing too well at the moment. I'm thinking a couple of results there, maybe Conte could crack under the pressure like previous seasons, like he did at Chelsea. But I'd say at the moment 5th, but you never know.
Okay. Pete, I promise I'll be quick. Lisa Mole, try and answer this in less than 20 seconds, Keane. What do you think of your owners?
Get the scroll out.
Yeah.
I'll take the lead button there now. No, we're messing. Where do I start? Like, look, at the end of the day, you had it with Mike Ashley. We had it with the Glazers. Like, look, we've owners who don't care about the football club. I see a comment there about the European Super League. Like, they literally want to get the maximum gain for minimum investment. And United fans always get this thrown at them. United spend money. How much have the Glazers put into Man United? 0. How much they've taken out? 1.5 billion since they've taken over. Anything United spend is within their remit. So, like, look, they're the worst, probably one of the worst owners I've ever come across in my whole entire life. They don't care about the football club. The stadium is rotten. Like, the training ground, which was once best in class, isn't anymore. The women's team has been neglected as well. That's something that doesn't get highlighted. That's been neglected as well. So, like, all in all, there's so many facets to this football club that have been neglected since they've been owners. And you look at all the other clubs who are catching up because they're putting in money, they're getting directors of football in. Like, if you look at Newcastle, if I just want to bring yourselves up as an example, since you're new owners, like, you got your man from Brighton in Ashworth in as part of your recruitment team. And then, like, if you look at, like, you're getting shrewd signings, like, there's a vision there. Like, I'll tell you, United's vision under the Glazers is you get top 4, and then the next season you rest on your laurels. You don't invest. Like, Jose Mourinho finished 2nd under the Glazers against the Manchester City Centurions team. The Glazers gave him Fred, which is Mourinho put on record his 5th choice signing in midfield. They gave him Lee Grant on a free, or like 1 million, I think it was, and they gave him They gave him Dallo, who, look, in hindsight now has turned out to be a decent right back, but at the time to catch Man City, like, look, it wasn't a good signing. So yeah, they're parasites. I could go on all night about these. I'm not going to do it.
You know what I was going to say, Keane, is that just as we move on to the next section, is that everything you were saying about the club, about the Glazers, it's like a mirror image to what we experienced with Mike Ashley. It was exactly the same. And obviously we're talking of a point of privilege now because we've got fantastic owners. We went through that 15 years of hell under him, 14, 15 years, whatever it was. It felt like 30, I've got to be honest. And we were nothing during that time. I would say the only thing from your perspective is that even with those owners in that last Alex Ferguson, he carried on winning new trophies. And even after that, you won an FA Cup, you won the Europa League, League Cup. We were nothing in that time. The best we hoped for was a 5th place finish. And then we ended up signing Werner and Anita, the already signed the next summer. Like, it was kind of like, it is a very similar situation for us. But it's one of those situations that is not good at all, and it does kind of bring me back to those horrible memories. I'm sure you're the same, Chris, of how it felt.
Absolutely.
Being a Newcastle fan under Mike Ashley. But I'm going to move on to the next section because we are trying to stick to time tonight. Trying to very, very close. We're looking at, but of course, with every away days, we like to get some stats as we build towards the game on Sunday. And there's only one way that we do stats on Loaded Mag NUFC away days.
Evening, lads.
Like magic, he appears, as always. So Keith, absolute pleasure to have you on. 00 Stato, how's things?
Everything's really well at the minute. You know, the Newcastle have started winning and started scoring goals again.
Yes, love it. And look, building up to this massive game on Sunday, please tell me some positive stats. Some positive stats that you could bring our way, because I know Old Trafford isn't one of our greatest hunting grounds, I've got to be honest.
This is going to be a bumpy ride, this. So get ready for some stats. I've got some head-to-head stats. I've got some stats about Eddie Howe. I've got the manager. I've got some stats about players for both teams. And then I've got some general stats as well in terms of form. But it is going to be up and down. I'll just forewarn you that. Because it is Old Trafford, and it does rain a lot at Old Trafford and in Manchester for Newcastle, and it generally tends to rain a lot of goals in this fixture as well. Newcastle's record in this fixture since 93-94, they've played 54 times in the league, won 7, drawn 15, and lost 32 times against Man United. Newcastle's record against Man United at Old Trafford, they've played 27 times with just 1 win, 9 draws and 17 defeats, with 63 goals for Man United and 21 for Newcastle. Yeah, I'm going to pick it up, Chris. Newcastle's 1-0 win at Old Trafford in December 2013 was their only win at Old Trafford in 39 away games against Man United. And Newcastle have conceded more Premier League goals against Man United than any other club, 113 in total. There's only been 5 0-0 draws in 54 games since 1993-94 season, with the last draw coming in 2015-16. Newcastle have won 3 of their last 18 games against Man United by the same score, 1-0. Eddie Howe's record in this fixture with Man United, he's managed 11 games. He's won 2, he's drawn 2, and he's lost 7. Cristiano Ronaldo, Pete's favourite player, he's scored 7 goals in his last 5 games against Newcastle, with 4 goals, and he's assisted 3 as well. And Kieran Trippier, this was an interesting stat. He's played 124 passes into the penalty area in this season's Premier League, more than any other player, creating a joint high 11 chances from set pieces. So Newcastle's set pieces have came on leaps and bounds since Trippier was signed. We know about the free kicks. Well, those are the shots in as well into the penalty area. Miggy Almiron, another player in form. He's looking to score for 3 consecutive Premier League games for the first time, and a 5th goal would be his highest in the Premier League. So he's doing brilliantly this season, Miggy Almiron, already. Moving on to some general stats. Man United have won 5 of their past 6 Premier League games. Man United are on really good form. Take out their only defeat against Man City, doing brilliantly. Man United are also looking to win 3 consecutive home league games at Old Trafford for the first time since last December. And whereas Newcastle are looking to score at least 4 goals in 3 consecutive matches in the league for the first time since October 1961. And just rounding off here, if Newcastle win on Sunday, it'll be the 16th Premier League win in a calendar year, and that would be the highest number of wins in a calendar year since 2013. Brilliant.
And we're only in October.
Yep, already. And I just thought I'd round off this one for Pete, because I know how much Pete likes Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo is 2 league goals short of 500 career goals. Now, if he scores 2 on Sunday, Pete,
no,
you kind of cheer.
Trust me, we'll
get a sue out of Pete there on Sunday.
No chance. Honestly, I was in absolute like I was in a state when he scored those 2 goals at Old Trafford last season. I'll be exactly the same this year. You know, as much as I love the guy, I don't want him scoring. I want him to play because I think Sven Botman will destroy him on Sunday. And as much as I love Ronaldo, I hope Sven Botman does, because I love Sven Botman probably just as much right now. But yeah, great stats as always, Keith. Absolutely love it. Mixed bag, as you said beforehand, it definitely was a mixed bag. But look, some of those stats are there to be broken from a Newcastle perspective, because we are very much a different Newcastle United than we were in those previous stats there. But look, as we are very, very short on time, I'm just going to quickly go through to our section where we look at the game in a little bit more detail. So I always like to get off on the screen. I think you can see that now. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So I want to get the tactical board out, and you know, Keane asked for your opinion on the starting lineup, and that's what you kind of gave us. I put the tactical system the way I thought you might think it would be set up as, and I've gone for the team that I think Newcastle United will start with. That may raise some questions, but Keane, just very quickly, just let us know about your starting lineup and where you think you can win the game on Sunday.
I think where we can win the game, I think, especially in midfield with Eriksen and Fernandes, I think being creative outlets in midfield, creating a high number of chances for the likes of Anthony and Cristiano Ronaldo. Marcus Rashford off the left-hand side for me. Him and Trippier is going to be an interesting battle. And Lisandro Martinez, actually, you know, when he gets on the ball, he's actually nearly almost an extra midfield player. And the way he plays between the lines, he's very good. And I think, look, if we were to break Newcastle down with Schär and Botman at the back, I think Martinez getting that ball into Fernandes in advanced positions, Joe, may be key to us winning this game.
Okay, do you play quite a high line then? Do you guys push yourselves quite far up the pitch? So would you see Varane and Martinez here sort of pushing the ball forward into these areas?
We don't play too much. We don't play deep, but we don't play high. It's kind of mid. Like, we don't play too high up the pitch, but what we do is, like, the likes of Casemiro and Eriksen do press the midfielders, and they do try to win the ball back quickly. So from that perspective, I do think for us this weekend, I think we need to try and impose ourselves on the ball, get the ball to Martinez and Eriksen and Fernandes, and try to, I suppose, get at a very good Newcastle back four, which has been very organised. And like, look, as you said, like they don't concede many goals, so we do need our attacking players to be in fine form.
Yeah, I mean, initially I put Rashford here and I put Ronaldo on the left, but you know, Ronaldo very rarely plays on the left now. But I just had the assumption that Rashford would play through the middle, because before he got injured, his form through the middle was so good, and he was breaking those lines, particularly against the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool. It was causing a lot of problems playing in that forward line. But I can see if Ronaldo's going to play, he has to play as that front guy. I think that fits into it. I think that suits Botman and Shaw down to the ground, because I think they've got the ability to stop Ronaldo playing big, physical, strong. I think they can handle him. He doesn't really make those runs in and behind as Marcus Rashford does. So I think it would make their job slightly easier. When the ball falls into the box, though, this is where he comes alive. So this is where they're going to have to be switched on, particularly Shaw, in my opinion. But Rashford, this is going to be interesting. And I think it's a talking point, Chris and Keith, I'll come to you on this in a second, in that Rashford and Anthony, both with pace, Trippier and Burn, although very good defenders, aren't the quickest. You know, is there an argument that Target should be starting there instead? You know, from your point of view, and I'll come to you, Chris, on this, where do you think Newcastle can win the game? And just looking at the points that I mentioned about Man United, do you think, you know, are they areas we've got to be worried about?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Man United briefly, Pete, just to say that left-hand side worries me. Now I'm looking at that lineup, our left-hand side, I mean, Anthony against Murphy and Burn concerns me. And just to tell the people at home, Pete, what we were talking about in why Dan Burn has been playing left back is we see Kieran Trippier, the number 2, on the screen anyway. Kieran Trippier, he moves up, and then our back 3 push along, just like that, and then we become a back 3. Now, I would hope that's the case. Sean Longstaff sweeping up there, cleaning everything up. Willock and Bruno are looking to get forward.
Yeah.
And then obviously Wilson is trying to cause havoc between Varane and Martinez. We then see Murphy on the left, and we see Almiron on the right, and they're both obviously pushing high. The only danger of that is, again, it's due to that pace on the wings. It's Anthony and it's Rashford. They could.
I was going to say Murphy and Trippier, they almost become wing backs, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
That's the way they play.
They do. And, we're going to have to be mindful of that. And you're absolutely right, Peter. It could be that we see Matty Target come back in. It could be that, Eddie Howe shuffles it. Last 2 games we've gone unchanged. We're assuming that he will stay unchanged. Maybe this is where he throws the surprise in, because we're at Old Trafford and because we're up against this team. Eddie Howe's not afraid. To be fair to him, he's not afraid to change things up. I think he likes to reward good performances, and he is a very loyal manager, but he's also a very tactically sound and sensible manager. And I think he may look at this and go, do you know what, Murphy and Burn on our left-hand side, Man United's right-hand side, that could be a problem area. So who knows? You could see Maxi back in there. You could see Matty Target in there. Who knows? But I think in terms of us winning it, just briefly, I think a very quick question for Keane. Is Malaysia now just out of it, Keane, now that Luke Shaw's back in your opinion?
I think he's had a bit of a shaky couple of games. So what's happening with Malaysia at the moment is, I think Ten Hag's just managing him. He's not overplaying him. And Luke Shaw had 2 very good performances. He came on away against Ammonia, almost changed the game. And at Goodison Park, he was our best player. He was exceptional at left back. So I think Luke Shaw, if you look at Almiron, he's been very good this season. He cuts in very well. I think there could be a danger if we played Malaysia there, considering his last couple of performances. Almiron actually could roast him, to be fair. So I look at Luke Shaw, he's better defensively. He's probably actually better going forward as well. He's brilliant on the ball. He makes them kind of line breaking passes into the striker as well. So yeah, Luke Shaw will be a very important player for it to beat you this weekend. But look, if Malaysia comes in, one thing he does do, he does drift in field. And he does, kind of play as an extra midfielder when he does get in there, and kind of similar to kind of what City do with their fullbacks. You see Malaysia drifting in, and he try to get involved. Dallo actually does the same as well. So, in case if Newcastle do try to overload us in midfield, you may see that to the fullbacks maybe trying to get in there and trying to get involved. But if I look at our overall back 4, that the one that's on screen there now would be our strongest one at the minute.
Definitely. Shaw gives you that attack emphasis, particularly at home, getting forward, getting into the box, getting balls into the box. But, it goes back to this point here. He is a terror at the moment. 4 goals.
He scored Old Trafford last season as well.
Yeah. He's a terrific player and causing havoc all over the shop. He is a player that can break the lines. He's for me, it's a mismatch. Shaw's not the slowest, but in attacking areas, tracking back, he just seems so slow. And him against Almiron is a mismatch for me. I think Almiron could get some serious joy because Trippier can find any man from this position in and around breaking these lines, and Almiron can break those lines and get in there.
Yeah,
I think it's a very difficult position. Equally, I think here ASM has got the beating of Dalot. Dalot is good technically, particularly in attacking areas, but defensively, Alan St-Maximin could potentially have him on toast. But Keith, I'll come to you as well, because I'm going to ask you this question. Obviously, we talked about the team, but we've not got Joe Linton in there. Do you think he deserves to come back in the team? Would you keep him on the bench? And if you did bring him in, who would you take out?
Yeah, I was about to ask about Joe Linton, funnily enough, because his omission on that team just stands out to me like a sore thumb, really.
Yeah.
Especially given how he played last year in the fixture at St James's Park over Christmas. So there's a few things, really. I think Newcastle are coming into a busy period, really. I think they've got about 4 games, haven't they? In quite a short space of time. They've obviously got Everton on a Wednesday. really. I mean, does he go and take Longstaff's position? Does how rotate, thinking ahead with a few matches coming up, and think put Joe Linton in there to break up some of the play, linking up well with obviously the likes of Bruno and then Willock. Is that a choice there for Howe, perhaps?
I think it's a fair point, Keith. You could see Joe Linton be on the left where Willock is. Willock move to his right position, and then have Bruno sitting in the 6. You could see that. Maybe we want Bruno there just to kind of protect, because don't forget we're coming up against a very strong midfield in Eriksen, Casemiro, and Fernandes.
Yeah, it's a great shout. It is a great shout, and it's one of them. And people don't want Bruno in this position. It was well documented that we want him further forward so he can affect the game in these areas here, where he obviously got his 2 goals against Brentford. But for the benefit of the tactical system and the way we set up, do we bring Longstaff out? I think is a great point that both yourself, Keith, and Chris has talked about. But look, regardless of that, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. We're going to need to keep an eye on Anthony, like Saeed mentioned and Keane have mentioned as well. Rashford's the one for me. Although I love Ronaldo and we know what Ronaldo can do, Rashford's the one in form. He's really turned it around this season, and he looks to be fit and firing. So if we can keep him quiet, I think that takes us a long way in terms of getting the job done, in my opinion. Just because his pace is lightning and he's a frightening player when running at defenders. But as I've said, and as you alluded to, Chris, as well, you know, the way we're looking now and the way I've set it up tactically in game, this is how it's going to look. Is this going to push Rashford back? Is it going to stop him moving forward? Is he going to take the risk? So it's a potential of 2-on-1. These are all questions you're going to ask, and it'll be the same here with ASM potentially, or Murphy, and whoever plays on the left side, whether it's Willock or Joe Linton, because we do like to take risks. We do trust our defenders to do the job here in defensive areas, and we do say to our more attacking players, go and take a risk, because if it gets us a goal, then great. We did it in Anfield and nearly paid off. So it's one of those things that we're going to need to keep an eye on. But great to get your opinions on that. Look, we're coming towards the end of the show. Probably only got a few minutes left, and I do want to get predictions. But have we got a couple of maybe quick fire questions before we start to wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Keane, I'm going to try and restrict you to a one-word answer there. I don't know whether you'll be able to do it, but do your best. Okay, Keane, what do you think? Nobby Clark says, what do you think of the signing of Dubravka?
Decent second choice keeper. If David De Gea does get injured or fall out of form, I thought he was a good keeper at Newcastle. Played very well against us, and yeah, he's a good backup option with Henderson being gone.
Yano asks, will Ronaldo leave in Man United in January? There appears to be little interest from bigger clubs.
No, if I look at Martial's injury problems and the cash flow issue that we do have, and we overspent in the summer, so I don't see Ronaldo leaving in January, but I do see him leaving next summer.
Yeah. Nobby says, Bruno Fernandes or Paul Scholes?
I love Bruno. Bruno's my guy, but come on, like, Scholesy all day.
Daz, our very own Daz, asks, how many podcasts are you part of? He seems to be on a different one every 6 months.
Yeah, so I have my own channel, the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk, and then I'm on Talk the Devils as well. So they'd be the 2 ones I'll be on. On Talk the Devils, we do shows every Friday with 2 former Man United players, so it's always good there. 7 o'clock every Friday.
Good man. Very last question. Jordy Toon for Life asks, and I can't wait to hear your answers to this. What does the Man U fan, Keane, think of Mark Goldbridge and his comments on many Man United issues?
Next question.
I thought that would be the answer. It's always very questionable with regards to Mark Goldbridge, that is for sure. But look, before I get to the sponsors, quick rounds of predictions. Chris, what's it going to be for us at 4:30 Sunday afternoon?
I'm going to say 2-2. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, and I think if we come away from Old Trafford, to be fair, I'll be delighted with a point. I think 2-2.
Interesting. Keane, from a Man United perspective, what do you think the score's going to be?
I'll go 2-1. I think Newcastle will make it hard for us. It'll be a tough game, but I think our forwards will get us out of trouble. I'll actually go Martial to probably come off the bench and win us the game.
Okay, interesting. And Keith, what's your score prediction?
Anybody for another 3-3 draw on Sunday?
Oh my God.
Oh,
6-6 goal thriller against the red side of Manchester this time instead of the blue. No, I think unfortunately, I think Newcastle historically struggle at Old Trafford, and I think Man United's attacking line is slightly stronger than Newcastle's. I've got a feeling that Man United are going to run it. That Newcastle make it tough. There might be some VAR controversy as well. VAR might be switched off again. But I've got a feeling it's going to be 3-1 to Man United, and I think Ronaldo could be making a bit more history on Sunday.
Ooh, interesting. Very, very interesting. Look, I think me and Chris Banks are in sync right now because Chris Banks has put Man United 2, Newcastle 3. And I think it'll be a 3-2. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I think Newcastle are going to go for it. Nothing to lose at Old Trafford. I think Howe is going to go for that famous win. And I do think he's got a great chance of getting it. And I'm always going to be positive. Yano's gone 4-1. Andy's gone 2-2. Lots of different scores in there, but I'm confident that Newcastle will at least not lose the game. But I actually do think we'll win. And I hope so because I'm going to be there. But look, it's been great to have you on, Keane. I'll let you go right now just as we wrap up the sponsors. Thank you for everything, taking the time for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. And the reverse fixture, it'd be great to have you on again.
yeah, absolutely. Definitely be delighted to come on again. And look, hopefully, best luck for the rest of the season. Hopefully, you can take some points off some other teams for us. Beat the likes of Arsenal and all that for us, please. Absolutely, because look, wouldn't it be just lovely if both of us were in the race for the top 4 this season and some of the other teams dropped out for once?
Definitely. We will try our best, no doubt about it. But you take care, mate, and we'll speak to you soon.
No worries, guys. See you. Have a good one.
Cheers, Keane. All the best, mate.
Yeah, lads. Bye-bye.
Great to have Keane on joining us tonight. And look, it's been a great show, great questions, great feedback. Everything's been fantastic. Really, really appreciate it. And of course, we can't do anything before we leave in terms of going through the sponsors. So Shyburns, Simon's been in the chat, www.shyburns.com. For all your Shyburns gear. Obviously, he's, of course, involved in Be a Game Changer, which is a fantastic achievement, but he's got some fantastic gear as well, all in support for mental health. So please have a look through at what he's got. And, of course, if you haven't seen the top that I've been wearing tonight, you've got that top there. Pins and prints, they are back. Some fantastic pins and prints. We've got the Craig Bellamy print. There is the Miguel Almiron print that is available as well on the website. So go and take a look. And the fantastic goal against Fulham is there for you to see. Machine House, of course, I've got a new line of clothing. We've got an even newer line of clothing. That will be coming out very, very soon. So keep an eye out on that, and we'll have it on available for our next show. And of course, Dean, hope you're well. Hope you're recovering well. Great to speak to you earlier. Hope your recovery is going well, and we see you in the chat very, very soon. We've got the fantastic Oogie modeling the Geordie Rise. So get involved in the Geordie Rise, one of our fantastic sponsors. And of course, I think we've got something new sponsor related coming very soon. So keep your eye on that. Keep your eyes peeled because we're always building, always something new happening. And of course, if you want to become a member, Daz put it in the chat earlier. You can't do it from your phone. I made that mistake of spending months trying to find it on my phone and not being able to find it. But yes, if you're on a laptop, you can find, very, very easy to find and very simple to do to become a member. We are looking at doing something special. We're very close to a magic number. I think we're about 8 or 9 away from becoming to that magic number. And we'll be doing something special if we get there. So if we can have 8 or 9 new members tonight, that'd be amazing. Click that join button, $1.99 a month. Come become a part of the Loaded family. And as well, if you haven't already subscribed, we are well on the way to 5K. Come and join. There's lots of new in the chat tonight. Click that subscribe button. And if you haven't already, click the like button as well. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Chris, as always, the main man. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. In Double O Stato, always a pleasure, never ever a chore. Stats are on point, and we will get you off that fence someday. We will to give us a positive Newcastle United result. But look, I'll let you guys go. Thank you for everyone in the chat. It's been absolutely amazing. And away the lads, 3 points on Sunday. Fingers crossed. Let's do it. Take care. Speak to you soon.
See you guys.
And of course,
Later, lads.
we do love playing away.
Yes.
Mate, I've got to shoot because I'm already
Don't
late.
worry.
I'll speak to you soon, mate. All right.
Catch you soon, mate. See you later.
See ya.
Take care, mate.